Madison Clarke smoothed down her borrowed silver dress for the third time in as many minutes, her heart hammering against her ribs. The Grand Celestial Hotel ballroom glittered with chandeliers and champagne, filled with Manhattan's elite attending the annual Hartwell Foundation charity gala. She didn't belong here among the designer gowns and diamond necklaces. But her best friend Emma had insisted she come as her plus one. "Stop fidgeting," Emma whispered, pressing a glass of champagne into Madison's hand. "You look gorgeous." Madison took a sip, trying to calm her nerves. At 23, she'd spent the last year working double shifts at a downtown cafe to pay off her student loans. A night like this felt like stepping into someone else's fairy tale. That's when she saw him, tall and commanding, with dark hair and impossibly blue eyes. He stood near the bar in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. Even from across the room, his presence was magnetic. Several women hovered nearby, vying for his attention, but he seemed oblivious to them all as he scanned the crowd with an almost bored expression. "That's Alexander Hartwell," Emma breathed, "the billionaire tech mogul. He's only 31 and already worth billions. Also extremely single and notoriously private." Madison found herself unable to look away. As if sensing her gaze, Alexander's eyes suddenly locked with hers across the crowded room. The intensity of his stare made her breath catch. For a moment, the noise of the party faded away, and it was just the two of them connected by an invisible thread. Then someone bumped into Madison, breaking the spell. She turned to apologize, and when she looked back, Alexander was walking toward her with purposeful strides. "Oh my God! He's coming over here!" Emma squeaked before suddenly remembering she needed to find the restroom and disappearing into the crowd. Madison stood frozen as Alexander stopped directly in front of her. So close she could smell his cologne. Something expensive and intoxicating. "I don't recognize you," he said, his voice low and smooth. "And I know everyone here." "That's because I'm nobody," Madison replied, then immediately cringed at her own words. "I mean, I'm Madison. Madison Clarke. My friend brought me." A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Alexander Hartwell. And you're definitely not nobody, Madison Clarke. I would have remembered you." Heat bloomed across her cheeks. "I know who you are. This is your foundation's event." Technically, it was my mother's foundation. I just keep it running in her memory. Something flickered across his face. Grief, maybe, or regret. Then it was gone, replaced by an intensity that made her knees weak. "Dance with me." It wasn't a question, but Madison found herself nodding anyway. Alexander took her hand, his touch sending electricity up her arm, and led her onto the dance floor. As a waltz began, he pulled her close, one hand settling on the small of her back while the other held hers. "I should warn you," Madison said nervously. "I'm not very good at this. Just follow my lead," he murmured against her ear, sending shivers down her spine. They moved together effortlessly, as if they'd been dancing for years instead of seconds. Madison was acutely aware of every point where their bodies touched, every breath he took, the way his thumb traced small circles on her back. "So what do you do, Madison Clarke, when you're not crashing charity galas?" She laughed. "I'm a barista, actually. Not exactly glamorous. I studied art history in college, but turns out there aren't many jobs in that field that pay the bills." "Art history," he repeated thoughtfully. "What drew you to it?" "I love stories," she admitted. "Every painting, every sculpture tells a story. About the artist, about the time period, about what it means to be human. I guess I'm a romantic that way." Alexander's eyes darkened with something she couldn't quite name. "A romantic? That's rare these days. What about you? What's your story?" He was quiet for a moment, guiding her through a turn. "Not as interesting as you'd think. Work mostly. Building an empire doesn't leave much time for anything else." "That sounds lonely." The words slipped out before she could stop them. But instead of being offended, Alexander pulled her closer. "It is," he said simply. "Very lonely." The vulnerability in his voice made her heart ache. Here was one of the most powerful men in the world, surrounded by wealth and success, admitting to a complete stranger that he was alone. Maybe you just need to make time for what matters, Madison suggested softly. And what matters, Madison? She looked up at him, finding his gaze already on her face. Connection. Real connection with another person. Moments that make you feel alive. Like this moment? His voice had dropped to barely a whisper. Yes, she breathed. Like this. The song ended, but neither of them moved. They stood in the middle of the dance floor, lost in each other, until someone cleared their throat nearby. Mr. Hartwell, the keynote speech? Alexander's jaw tightened with frustration. Give me a minute. But as the assistant walked away, reality crashed back in. This was ridiculous. He was a billionaire and she was a barista with student loan debt. This was just a dance, nothing more. I should let you go, Madison said, starting to pull away. Alexander's grip on her hand tightened. Have dinner with me. Tomorrow night. I don't think that's a good idea. Why not? Because we're from different worlds. This? She gestured around them. This isn't my life. Maybe I want to see your world, he countered. Maybe I'm tired of this one. Madison's heart thundered. Every logical part of her brain screamed that this was a bad idea, that she'd only end up hurt. But the way he looked at her, like she was the only person in the entire ballroom, made her want to take the risk. Okay, she heard herself say. Dinner. Alexander's smile was brilliant. He pulled out his phone. Give me your number. After she did, he leaned down and pressed his lips to her cheek. The kiss brief but searing. Until tomorrow, Madison Clarke. She watched him walk away to give his speech, her hand pressed to where he'd kissed her, wondering what she'd just agreed to. The next evening, Madison changed outfits 6 times before settling on a simple black dress. Alexander had texted her an address in Tribeca with instructions to meet him at 7. She'd expected a fancy restaurant, but the address led to a beautiful brownstone with a private entrance. Her finger hovered over the doorbell. This was crazy. She should leave right now. Before she could decide, the door opened, and Alexander stood there in jeans and a dark blue sweater that made his eyes even more striking. Casual looked impossibly good on him. I was watching for you, he admitted with a slight smile. Come in. The brownstone was stunning but warm, filled with books and art that looked actually lived with rather than just displayed. Is this your home? One of them. The one I actually like. He led her through to a gourmet kitchen where something smelled incredible. I hope you don't mind, but I thought we'd stay in. I get tired of restaurants where everyone watches and whispers. You cooked. Don't sound so surprised. I'm actually a decent cook when I have time. He pulled out a chair at the intimate table set for 2. Sit. Let me take care of you. Over pan-seared salmon and roasted vegetables, they talked. Really talked. Alexander asked about her family, her dreams, what made her happy. Madison found herself telling him things she rarely shared. How her father had left when she was 10. How her mother worked 3 jobs to put her through college. How she felt guilty pursuing art when she should be more practical. Why is it impractical to pursue what you love? Alexander asked, refilling her wine glass. Because love doesn't pay the bills. What if it could? What would you do if money wasn't an issue? Madison considered. I'd cure it. Find emerging artists and help them get seen. Create exhibitions that make art accessible to everyone, not just the wealthy. That's beautiful, he said softly. Why don't you do it? Because I just told you. Money, right? Alexander leaned forward. What if I funded it? Your gallery, your vision. What? No. Alexander, I can't. Why not? I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. Why not use it to help someone achieve their dreams? Because I barely know you, Madison protested, even as her heart raced at the possibility. And because I don't want to be some charity case. His expression hardened slightly. Is that what you think this is? Me feeling sorry for you, isn't it? In response, Alexander stood and walked around the table, pulling her to her feet. Madison, I've met thousands of people. Most of them want something from me: money, connections, status. You're the first person in years who looked at me and saw just a man. Not a bank account. Not an opportunity. Just me. His hands cupped her face, thumbs brushing her cheekbones. Last night, for the first time in longer than I can remember, I felt something. You made me feel alive again. Madison's breath hitched. Alexander, tell me you feel it too. This connection between us. She did. God help her, she did. It was insane and improbable. But standing there in his kitchen, she felt more seen and understood than she had in her entire life. I feel it, she whispered. Alexander's kiss was gentle at first, questioning. But when Madison pressed closer, her fingers tangling in his hair, the kiss deepened into something urgent and consuming. He tasted like wine and promises, and she wanted more. Madison, he groaned against her lips. We should slow down. What if I don't want to slow down? He pulled back enough to search her face. I don't do this. I don't move this fast. But with you, I can't seem to help myself. Then don't. Madison reached up to kiss him again. For once, just don't help yourself. Something broke in him then. Alexander lifted her easily, carrying her through the brownstone to a bedroom with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He set her down carefully on the bed, his hands shaking slightly as they traced up her sides. Tell me to stop if you want me to stop, he said. I don't want you to stop. Madison pulled him down to her. I've never. This is my first time. But I wanted to be with you. Alexander froze. Madison, are you sure? We can wait. I'm 23, not 16. I've been waiting for the right person, the right moment. This feels right, Alexander. You feel right. The reverence in his eyes made her feel like the most precious thing in the world. Then I'll make it perfect for you. I promise. His hands were patient and skilled, learning every inch of her skin as he slowly removed her dress. Madison had never felt so beautiful as she did under his gaze, his whispered words of praise. When she reached for his sweater, he helped her remove it, then let her explore the planes of his chest, his stomach. What followed was tender and passionate, Alexander keeping his promise to make it perfect. He moved slowly at first, watching her face for any sign of discomfort, murmuring encouragement and praise. The initial pain gave way to pleasure, building higher and higher until Madison shattered in his arms, crying out his name. Alexander followed soon after, burying his face in her neck as he found his own release. They lay tangled together afterward, hearts racing, skin cooling in the city breeze. Stay, Alexander whispered, pulling her closer. Stay with me tonight. Madison knew she should probably leave, should protect her heart before this got too complicated. But wrapped in his arms, feeling safer and more cherished than she ever had, she couldn't bring herself to go. Okay, she breathed. I'll stay. Madison woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of coffee. She stretched, pleasantly sore, and reached for Alexander, but his side of the bed was empty. Wrapping herself in his shirt from the night before, she padded out to find him in the kitchen, on the phone and looking tense. I don't care what the board says, Stephen. This deal has to happen. He turned and saw her, his expression softening immediately. He held up a finger. I'll call you back. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Madison said. You're not interrupting anything important. Alexander crossed to her, pulling her into his arms and kissing her thoroughly. Good morning, beautiful. How do you feel? Happy, she admitted. A little overwhelmed. Overwhelmed good or overwhelmed bad? Before she could answer, his phone rang again, and 3 more times before he finally turned it off with a frustrated curse. Problems? Madison asked. Just work. It never stops. He poured her coffee. But I'm ignoring it today. I want to spend the day with you. They did. Alexander showed her his favorite spots in the city. Not the touristy places, but the hidden gardens and small bookshops he escaped to when the pressure got too much. They held hands and talked and kissed on street corners like normal people falling for each other. But normal was an illusion, as Madison discovered when they were photographed outside a cafe. Within an hour, her phone was exploding with messages from Emma, and even people she barely knew from college. Is that really you with Alexander Hartwell? OMG, you're all over social media. Who knew our Madison was secretly dating a billionaire? Alexander noticed her distress. What's wrong? She showed him her phone. I didn't realize we'd be public. Everyone's asking questions. His jaw tightened. I'm sorry. I should have warned you. The media's obsessed with my personal life. He took her hand. But Madison, I don't care what they say. I want to see where this goes. Do you? Looking into his eyes, seeing the vulnerability there, Madison pushed aside her anxiety. Yes, I want that too. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind. Alexander made time for her despite his demanding schedule, stealing hours for coffee dates and long evening walks. He took her to the theater, to gallery openings, showed her a world she'd only dreamed of. But he also came to her tiny studio apartment, ate pizza on her second-hand couch, and talked until dawn about everything and nothing. Madison was falling in love with him, terrified her. You've been different lately, her friend Emma observed one afternoon at the cafe, glowing. He's really serious about you, isn't he? I think so. I hope so. Madison bit her lip. It feels real, Em. The way he looks at me, the way he listens. It's not about his money. I know it's not, Emma assured her. But are you ready for what dating someone like him means? The scrutiny, the pressure, the public attention. Madison had been trying not to think about that. But Emma had a point. Just yesterday, a gossip blogger had written a piece speculating about her relationship with Alexander, calling her a mystery woman and questioning what a billionaire saw in a regular girl. That evening, when Alexander picked her up for dinner, she brought it up. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why me? You could date anyone. Models, actresses, heiresses. Why choose someone so ordinary? Alexander pulled the car over and turned to face her fully. Madison, you are extraordinary. You see the world with wonder. You care about art and beauty and meaning. You make me want to be better, to do more with what I have. He took her hand. And when I'm with you, I'm not Alexander Hartwell, billionaire CEO. I'm just Alexander, a man who's falling for an incredible woman. Tears stung her eyes. I'm falling for you too. That's what scares me. Why does it scare you? Because this feels too good to be true. Because I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. Alexander leaned over and kissed her softly. I know I live in a different world than you do. I know this isn't easy. But I've never felt this way about anyone, Madison. I don't want to lose you. You won't, she promised. I'm not going anywhere. But the universe had other plans. The crisis hit 3 days later. Alexander's company faced a hostile takeover attempt that required his immediate attention. He had to fly to London for emergency meetings, leaving with barely enough time to say goodbye. I'm sorry, he said, holding her tight at the airport. This is terrible timing. It's okay. This is your life. I understand. I'll call you every day. This will be over soon, and then we'll... His assistant interrupted, pointing at his watch urgently. Go, Madison said, trying to smile. Save your empire. But the days stretched into a week, then 2. Alexander called when he could, but the time difference and his crushing schedule made real conversation impossible. Madison tried to be understanding, but she felt the distance growing between them. Then the photos appeared online. Alexander at a London gala with a beautiful British heiress on his arm. Alexander and the same woman leaving a restaurant late at night. The headlines screamed, "Billionaire already moving on? And Madison who?" Hartwell seen with society beauty. Madison's hands shook as she scrolled through the images. Alexander looked tired and distant in the photos, not happy. But he was still there, with another woman, while Madison sat alone in her apartment waiting for a call that never came. When he finally video called that night, she couldn't hide her hurt. Madison, what's wrong? Who is she? The woman in the photos. Alexander's expression hardened. Her name is Victoria Ashford. Her father's trying to buy my company. She's been at these events trying to convince me to accept their offer. She seems very close to you. It's business, Madison. Nothing more. You have to believe me. Do I? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've moved on pretty quickly. That's not fair, Alexander said, his voice tight. You know this takeover is consuming my life right now. I barely have time to sleep, let alone. Apparently you have time to go to galas and late dinners. Mandatory appearances. Madison, please, don't do this. But Madison's insecurities were overwhelming her reason. Maybe everyone was right. Maybe we're just too different. Maybe this was all just a fantasy. Don't say that. Don't you dare say that. Alexander looked stricken. Madison, I love you. The words hung between them. It was the first time either of them had said it. You love me? Madison repeated, tears streaming down her face. But you're there and I'm here, and I don't know how to do this. Then come to London. Let me fly you here right now. We'll figure this out together. Madison wanted to say yes, but the rational part of her brain, the part that had been hurt before, whispered warnings. I can't just drop everything and fly to London, Alexander. Some of us have jobs and responsibilities we can't ignore. I know that. I'm not asking you to. He stopped, running a hand through his hair in frustration. I'm doing this all wrong. Madison, please, just trust me. Trust us. I'm trying, she whispered. I'm really trying. They said goodbye with nothing resolved, both of them hurt and confused. The next morning, Madison woke to a knock on her door. She opened it to find a courier with an envelope containing a first-class plane ticket to London, leaving that afternoon, and a note in Alexander's handwriting. I know I'm asking a lot, but please come. Let me show you that you're the only one I want, that this is real. Madison stood in her apartment, ticket in hand, at a crossroads. The safe choice was to stay, to protect her heart, to let this impossible relationship fade away before it hurt more. The brave choice, the romantic choice, was to take a leap of faith. Her phone rang. Emma. Before you say anything, Emma said, I saw the photos and I know what you're thinking, but I also saw the way he looks at you, Mads. That man is in love with you. Real, genuine, earth-shattering love. So whatever you're deciding right now, make sure you won't regret it. After hanging up, Madison looked around her tiny apartment, at her ordinary life, at everything safe and known. Then she thought about Alexander, his laugh, his vulnerability, the way he made her feel alive. She grabbed her passport and called a car to the airport. 8 hours later, Madison walked into Alexander's London hotel suite, using the key he'd arranged for her. She found him at the desk, surrounded by papers, looking exhausted. When he looked up and saw her standing there, the relief and joy on his face made her heart soar. You came, he breathed, crossing to her in 3 long strides. I came, she confirmed, just before he kissed her desperately. They didn't speak for a while, too busy reacquainting themselves with each other's lips, their touch, their connection. When they finally broke apart, Alexander rested his forehead against hers. I love you, Madison Clarke. I should have said it weeks ago. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I'm sorry if my life makes this complicated. But I promise you, there's no one else. There will never be anyone else. I love you too, Madison whispered, and I'm sorry I doubted you. I'm not used to being someone's priority. Get used to it, Alexander said firmly. Because you're my priority now. You're my always. He proved it over the next 3 days. Between meetings, he showed her London, holding her hand through Hyde Park and kissing her on Tower Bridge. He introduced her to his business partners as the woman I love, not caring who heard. And every night, he made love to her with a tenderness and passion that left no doubt about his feelings. On their last night in London, lying tangled together in his hotel bed, Alexander pulled out a small velvet box. I know it's too soon, he said, opening it to reveal not a ring but a key. This is to the brownstone. Move in with me, Madison. I want to wake up with you every morning. I want to build a life with you. Madison's eyes filled with tears. Alexander, I'm not asking you to give up your dreams. Actually, he reached for his phone and pulled up an email. I put my lawyers on finding the perfect space for your gallery. There are 3 options here, all in great neighborhoods, all yours if you want them. Funded anonymously through my foundation, so you never have to worry about being my charity case. She looked at him, this powerful man who was offering her not just his heart, but the means to achieve her dreams. You really mean it. All of it. Every word. I love you, Madison. Say yes. She kissed him deeply, pouring all her love and gratitude and hope into it. Yes. Yes to all of it. Yes to us. Madison stood in her gallery, surveying the opening night of her latest exhibition. The space was packed with art lovers, collectors, and 3 emerging artists whose work she championed. She'd done this herself, well, with funding, but all the vision and curation was hers. Strong arms wrapped around her waist from behind, and Alexander's lips brushed her ear. Proud of you, Miss Clarke. She turned in his embrace. It's Ms. Hartwell now, remember? She held up her left hand, where a stunning diamond caught the light. They'd gotten married 3 months ago in a small ceremony with just close friends and family. How could I forget the best day of my life? Alexander murmured, kissing her softly. Second best, Madison corrected with a smile. The best was that night we met. That was the night everything changed. You changed everything, he agreed. You gave me your trust, your love, your first time. You gave me a reason to really live, not just exist. Madison looked around the gallery, then back at her husband. A year ago, she'd been afraid to take a chance on this impossible love. Now, standing in her dream gallery, married to the man of her dreams, she couldn't imagine having chosen any differently. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For asking me to dance. For being patient. For loving all of me, even the scared parts. Alexander pulled her closer. Always, now and forever. As guests mingled around them, celebrating art and life and possibility, Madison kissed her husband and thought about that first night. How one moment of courage, one dance, one leap of faith had transformed her entire world. Sometimes she'd learned, fairy tales do come true. You just have to be brave enough to believe in them.